When President Uhuru Kenyatta addressed the nation on Thursday last week and declared the curfew and also announced several tax reliefs, Kenyans were very excited. But there was also one announcement which the president made, but most Kenyans did not take note of. The president also announced that the cabinet will now be meeting twice every single week, and that those meetings will be chaired and coordinated by none other than Fred Okengo Matiangi. What most Kenyans did not realize at that time was that the president was actually thwarting an onslaught against Fred Okengo Matiangi by the allies of the deputy president William Samoei Ruto. And those who've been following the politics of this country very closely, you should have realized that before the president addressed the nation on that day, he had actually addressed the country some 2 days earlier. And in his address, the president shocked Kenyans when he only announced an agreement between Google and the government to allow Google loans to improve on 4G networks. Because according to the president, he had anticipated that most Kenyans will be using the internet to work from home. And that announcement by the president on Google loans really shocked Kenyans because Kenyans believed that the president was out of touch. And after that moment, most Kenyans started believing that it would have been better for the president just to stay away and let Mutahi Kagwe continue with the work. Because Mutahi Kagwe was now the face during this particular crisis, and he became the darling of Kenyans. But the allies of the deputy president was using that to launch an onslaught on Fred Okengo Matiangi, both on print media and also on online. Now let me just read for you something which was sponsored on the Star newspaper. I want you to listen very keenly. I'm going to read it. It's saying, a Cold War brewed over popularity contest is shaping up in President Uhuru Kenyatta's cabinet. A source aware of the development has told Corridor that a gang, underline the word gang, a gang of vocal and populist, underline populist, vocal and populist cabinet secretaries known to be abrasive and militant are worried the entry of a new cabinet secretary will dim their shine and eclipse their space in the arena. You see, this story and many other normally on this particular column called The Corridor is normally sponsored. It goes on, the CSS are frightened by the fact that the fresh and energetic CS is hitting the right notes and turning out to be the darling of not just the system, but also the public. That's Mutahi Kagwe. Because when Mutahi Kagwe started making these press statements during this crisis, most Kenyans were really excited about his grasp of issues and how he was handling this whole thing. So they believed that because Mutahi Kagwe, Kenyans really liked him, now they had to sponsor this story. Let me just continue because it's very interesting. It's continuing. One who is known to be a sucker for media headlines is said to have chided fellow CS at a recent presidential function that he will do everything possible to remain the president, the darling of the president. So who is that? Thus, they are referring to Fred Okengo Matiangi. And they are concluding the days to come will only tell who will have the last laugh. And who is now having the last laugh? In my view, it's Fred Okengo Matiangi. Because look at it and why they were raising these issues. Before this crisis came up, Fred Okengo Matiangi had actually disappeared. He had actually disappeared from the scene. He even missed the National Prayer Day, which was held at State House. He missed it. And Kenyans were wondering, where was Fred Okengo Matiangi? And in my view, just my personal opinion, I had concluded that because most government officials really traveled, Fred Matiangi had actually traveled a lot. And most senior government officials were under quarantine. Probably I was assuming that the reason Matiangi was not present there was because he had decided to quarantine himself. Because we all know that all responsible leaders who had any contact with anybody or who traveled, those who are responsible, decided to quarantine themselves. They didn't want to appear like the Kilifi deputy governor. But I don't know why he missed that particular event. Now, after the president made that particular announcement, remember, even before that, there was an onslaught against Fred Matiangi by one of my friends online called Robert Alai. And he was arrested and he blamed that on Fred Okengo Matiangi. He was alleging some quarry somewhere in Bobasi. And he was arrested and released. So there was an onslaught against Fred Matiangi. Then after the president made that announcement, I want to tell you this thing. It's what I think. After the president made that announcement, David Makali, you all know David Makali, made a tweet. Because Kenyans were like, now should we have a lockdown or should we have a curfew? And how effective is the curfew? So Makali posted something to the effect, let me just read for you. Of what use is a curfew if it is not effective? And how should it be enforced if the citizens don't want to obey the directives? You know, he was asking something very strategic, very clear, because most Kenyans were asking whether it's going to be effective, whether Kenyans were going to obey the directives, because we had seen places like Kondele and some other parts of the country, people had actually defied those directives. And it's continuing, at least in the same breath, condemned the citizens who ignore the law for any reason or for any reasons don't comply with the directives. In Elgeyo Marakwet County, life is business as usual. I want to assume EM here is Elgeyo Marakwet. And listen, the guy who responded to that tweet is Kipchumba Murkomen. And what is Kipchumba Murkomen's response? He's saying, congratulations to you, David. Mr. Ibu must be very proud of you. When he talks of Ibu, he's basically referring to Fred Okengo Matiangi. And someone responded to Murkomen, leo unaita CS Mr. Ibu. Kipchumba Murkomen made this tweet on 27th at 10:01 p.m. That's when he responded to David Makali. But on later, the next day, there's a guy called Kenyan Researcher. I want to believe these are some of the bots these guys use. He's saying CS Mutai had given the government so much bonker points in the last 2 weeks. Then in just hours, yote imeenda. So that's basically when the president announced that Fred Matiangi will now be the face coordinating all this. Not dealing with the communications, but just coordinating and chairing cabinet to deal with this. So this guy is saying, and I believe it's one of the bots, is saying, CS Mutai had given government so much bonker points in the last 2 weeks. Then in just a few hours, Yota imeenda. But now let's see who is responding to this. Again, Senator Aaron Cheriot. And what is Aaron Cheriot saying? Aaron Cheriot is saying, the minute Mr. Ibu showed up in that presser, I knew all the good work Kagwe had done would go the drain. Silly small dictator. He's also calling Fred Matiangi Mr. Ibu. So that cannot be coincidence. The fact of the matter is Tanga have a WhatsApp group. And in that WhatsApp group, they are referring to Fred Matiangi as Mr. Ibu. And the response by Cheriot, because if you remember, on that day the president was addressing these people, Fred Matiangi was there, Kagwe was there. I think there were Fred Matiangi, no, there was the president, the DP was missing, I don't know why, but there was the president, then there was Mutai Kagwe there, they were sitting there, standing there. Then in the middle, I think, was the Minister for Finance, and also there was Fred Okengo Matiangi. So he's saying the moment he saw Fred Matiangi there, These guys are fine. The moment he saw Fred Matiangi, not even Mutahi Kagwe, not even the cabinet, the moment he saw Matiangi there, he knew that there was a problem. And I believe that the president deliberately made that announcement that the cabinet will now be meeting twice weekly, and that those cabinet will be chaired by none other than Fred Matiangi. Who doesn't know that the president, through executive order number 1 of 2019, the executive order number 1 of 2019 made Fred Matiangi the supervisor of all cabinet ministers, which in effect meant that if a cabinet was to be chaired, then it's Fred Matiangi who was going to chair those cabinet meetings. So the president was basically telling off the allies of the deputy president, William Samoei Ruto. If you agree with that theory, I want you to raise your hands. Okay, but why were allies of the deputy president seriously targeting Fred Matiangi? Or why did they launch this serious onslaught against Fred Matiangi? Granted, Fred Matiangi and William Ruto are not the best friends. But you know, in politics, when you find opportunity to hit your opponent, you hit real hard. And this is what they were doing to Matiangi. And why were they doing it? Number one, in my view, they wanted the limelight away from Fred Matiangi. Kenya was facing a crisis. The president had appointed Mutahi Kagwe as the Minister for Health. And Mutahi Kagwe, for the short time he was managing the communications and Matiangi was nowhere, he was doing a very good job. He was really doing a good job and Kenyans were very happy. So these guys wanted that to continue. They didn't want Matiangi anywhere because you know Matiangi is forceful. So Matiangi would have likely taken limelight or success for all this. So they didn't want Matiangi anywhere to take success, credit for the success. They wanted a success to, I mean, if there's any credit, because in politics, whether it's a crisis, whether it's a calamity, politicians always look for politics, where they can get points, where they can pull their opponents down. So they didn't want any limelight to be credited to Fred Matiangi. Tunaelewana? That's number one. Number two, they wanted to portray Matiangi as someone who cannot deliver. Remember, in this country, there are several cabinet secretaries, but we all agree that the only cabinet secretary who had delivered before, during this regime of Uhuru, was none other than Fred Matiangi. He delivered as a minister for information. Matiangi delivered as a minister for education, and he was also delivering as a minister for interior. And Kenyans really appreciate the role or the work Fred Matiangi has done as in any ministry he has been to. But now they got the opportunity. Because he was nowhere, Fred was not nowhere, Mutahi Kagwe was doing a good job, so they found an opportunity to portray Fred Matiangi as someone who cannot deliver. And I want to tell you how this has been well coordinated. Yesterday, KJ made a post on Twitter. And in that post, he claimed that 7,000 people had arrived into the country between Wednesday and Sunday, which was a lie. It's true, people have been arriving into the country, but 7,000 figure was alarmist. And you know why he was saying that? He was saying that because he wanted to target Fred Matiangi. And I'm sure, I believe, because he's a key member of Tanga Tanga, that was their strategy. That was their strategy. So he claimed 7,000 people. So the intention was to declare, was to portray Matiangi as someone who is not responsible, because the Ministry of Interior is the one in charge of immigrations. You get? Even if you leave that, President Uhuru Kenyatta had declared state of emergency. And the police, just from nowhere, started brutalizing people for no reason. Of course, the fact of the matter is that Kenyans are also peculiar. They are told, be in your house at 7. They can't obey that. But the police then went ahead and used that opportunity to brutalize the Kenyans. Something which must be condemned in the strongest term possible. But that negativity of the police, who can it be blamed on? The Ministry for Interior, headed by Fred Okengo Matiangi. And I saw the way they were communicating that. Even the DP, for the first time, tweeted, because he had been quiet for some time. So basically, they wanted to portray Fred Okengo Matiangi as someone who cannot deliver. Number 3, they also wanted to blame Fred Okengo Matiangi for poor communication strategy. So that's why they were saying that Mutahi Kagwe was doing a good job. So anytime, the moment this guy will come up, the communications will be upside down. Remember, Fred Okengo Matiangi has never addressed the nation since the crisis came up. He has never. On the day when the president addressed the nation and made the blunder of Google loans and not telling Kenyans the solutions he had for them, because by that time Kenyans really wanted lockdown, and Kenyans really wanted to know how the government was going to help them in case a lockdown is declared. So they missed certain aspect of communications, and now they were trying to blame this on Fred Okengo Matiangi, which didn't make sense to me, because as things stand today, Matiangi has never addressed the nation anywhere as far as this crisis is concerned. But they want to blame him for poor communications. And just because I know most of you might not realize, after the president made that blunder on was it on Monday or Tuesday? Then I think the next day or a day after, there was an article on one of the dailies where they displayed president, why president is standing out with the new kind of dress. And a friend of mine told me, Lee, you know what's happening? These guys are engaging now in propaganda. Not propaganda, they are now in the PR team. Uhuru Kenyatta's PR team has now been engaged. And that's why they were now shifting the mind of Kenyans from that particular event which happened the previous day to the president's dressing code. Because we know that the president's dressing code is on top. So they put them together, Kenyans read, and Kenyans were excited. Kenyans were sharing those photos, but at the back of their mind, what they wanted, they were achieving. They wanted to show Kenyans that despite that challenge, then the president still remains someone. Then the next day now is when the president came to the nation and announced what Kenyans wanted to hear. He didn't announce the lockdown because that was not going to be very difficult, but he announced a curfew, which Kenyans embraced. But now again, Kenyans are peculiar. And then he announced the tax reliefs, which is going to help Kenyans like those who are earning less than 24,000. Not tax, you'll go with your 24,000 Kenyan shillings back home. So in my view, the president, through that small announcement, thwarted the onslaught which had been launched against Fred Okengo Matiangi by the allies of the deputy president, William Samoei Ruto. I don't know what you think. Thank you guys. And please, I want you to continue staying safe. I know I've been away, but the fact of the matter is that I've been at home. I had a funeral there, and we had to ensure we buried within 48 hours as per the government directives. So, you have to move here and there. So that's why the last 2 days or 3 I've been up and down. But I think I'm now up. I'll try to give you what we do best, because we are going to defeat. We are going to defeat it. It's not going to defeat us. Thank you guys, and please, may you have a good day.